It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. As always, karting with the K, fast-paced, white knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs. It is post-Turkey Day, and what a great way to kind of work some of that cholesterol out of your system, get your heart rate up, get those arms moving just a little bit as you're wheeling through the corners. Go over to Joe's Karting and do a little bit of indoor kart racing.
I don't think I would fit in the cart.
You would.
On Friday.
Maybe not on Friday. Give it Saturday or Sunday to kind of work some of that stuff out. But yeah, it's a happy post-Thanksgiving. I hope everyone had a safe and happy holidays. I was over I'm still coming back from Colorado. By the way, pulling back the curtain a little bit on the Wizard of Oz, we had to record on Monday because of the holiday, and I was on vacation throughout the week. So if anything happens throughout the week and we don't talk about it today, it's because we recorded on Monday, and because we recorded on Monday, all the news is going to break on Tuesday and Wednesday.
But you are still going to get our preview of the next race.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're still going to get y'all set for the coming up. That's going to be Daytona in what, 82, 83 days?
22 Fridays till Daytona. Yeah. No, I don't know what it is, but
not very many. That's
should have counted them.
Let's talk about so today's race. We're going to recap the race at Homestead, talk a little bit about the Championship 4 and our eventual at NASCAR Cup Series champion. Turn number 2, we're going to sit down with Nick Dice of Tuxedo Raceway Park over in Crete, Nebraska. Turn 3, Josh Most of Edge Chassis by Most will join us. And then in turn number 4, we're going to talk a little bit of the silly season, some of the places we think these guys are going to land when this news starts rolling. And who knows when it's going to start coming out, but we're going to do our best to kind of get you set for what you can expect coming up in the next couple of weeks.
And I have got a bone to pick with Mr. Martin Truex Jr. You were on national TV and said Joey Logano would not win the war, dude. You just went down a notch in my book.
Well, he did. He stuck true to his character. He didn't wreck him. Even though I think, anyways, as commentators of the show, I was telling Chad Robb this the other day, who, by the way, wow, Chad. I mean, he said he won a ton of money betting on Joey Logano because everyone had Logano as their third or fourth championship finisher.
So did I.
How much money did you win?
$100.
Oh, you won $100. Yeah. But anyways, Chad Robb was the one of us three that picked Joey Logano. I had Harvick winning the championship. You had Truex winning the championship, and he had Logano winning the championship.
I don't remember him having Logano winning the championship. I just remember him Larson,
mm-hmm.
and he was probably right there if Larson hadn't had his little.
Well, he had Larson winning the race, but Logano winning the championship. Anyways, let's talk about Homestead. Sitting out at the Homestead party. Again, I got to say thank you to everybody that came out. What a great event.
Time.
We had a lot of fun with everybody that came out again. Great beer specials. I had plenty of food, and then I went and had a Thanksgiving after that, so I was pretty miserable when I woke up Monday morning. But just watching the race, I kept thinking to myself, this has probably been the best championship 4. We haven't had a lot of chip 4s. I think this was the third or fourth time we've had them, but this was the strongest 4 that I could think of in recent history.
Yeah, I mean,
it's all recent history, but
yeah, it's turned. It was a good event. When Larson broke, you could hear a pin drop in that room.
Everyone, because it's a lot of the people that come down there, they're dirt fans that are also NASCAR fans. They're dirt fans first, and they wanted Logano to win, and they wanted Larson to win that race. And so far, it's been a great weekend with Tyler Reddick and Brett Moffitt.
That's all we heard about. Everybody that came in. How about those dirt drivers winning these NASCAR titles?
Yep. Yeah, but a great event, and we thank everybody for coming out and just having a good time. And we did trivia questions, and all these different people came out and they won, and there were so many prizes that were given away, and
we've still got so many left.
Yet I came home with more. I have, because of two of our fans that go around to all these national races and they get autographs from all these national guys, and they bring me 40 items and I only get rid of 30 of them. Now I've got more things I got to give away. Oh, woe is me.
Yeah.
But anyways, so the start of the race, Denny Hamlin ends up winning the pole, and there was a big conversation after qualifying because Denny Hamlin had picked the number 1 pit stall, but after a team meeting, he ended up giving up the number 1 pit stall to his teammate Kyle Busch, who started on the outside.
No, he hadn't picked it. You pick it. If he would have picked it, it would have been his. They wouldn't have allowed him to give it back. He didn't pick it, was the thing. He picked a great stall still. He picked one that was only the 4th stall, and it had an open spot in front of it.
Yeah.
But it still wasn't the optimum pit stall. And but, you know, and of course NASCAR said, well, that's not on track. So it's not the 100% these guys had to give on the track. So they had no problem with it. So,
well, you could pick any. I mean, they don't say that you got to pick the best pit stall. You have the first overall pick.
If you're picking 100%, you're picking the first pit stall.
Well, no, that's not necessarily true because there's some tracks that there is the pit opening that the number one person always picks that one because not only do they have their pit stall to get into, but they have that opening to be able to get out. It's a lot easier.
If you pick the number one pit stall, you're right out. There's nothing in front of you. The number one pit stall on every racetrack except I think it's Atlanta that has the switch over from the concrete to the asphalt. And you always spin your tires going across there. Every other track, the number one pit stall is where you want to be.
Well, anyways, it ended up being one heck of a race.
And it ended up not even mattering because 11 and 18 really weren't in the mix.
Right. I was really surprised. I really felt like Kyle Busch was probably the weakest of the 4 cars. And he seemed to come into that with all the swagger in the world. And granted, he won last weekend at Texas, so he was kind of the hot shoe right now. You know, when Elliott won those 2 races in the round, all of a sudden he was the guy that was guaranteed to go to Homestead. And then he gets eliminated the next round. And then, you know, Logano wins, and he's the hot guy, and he's moving on. And it's who's won lately. Obviously, we know that, but Kyle Busch really kind of felt like I thought he was the biggest contender. Obviously, I'm going to still stick with Kevin Harvick. I thought with just the way he is, the way him and Rodney Childers have been, and so on. I thought that Harvick was number 1, Kyle Busch was number 2, but Kyle just seemed to struggle so hard, and I thought he gave it away when they stayed out there on that last run.
Well, yeah, they definitely did, and he got that. Pit road penalty, you know, which really put him way back in the middle of nowhere, but he'd overcome that and he'd got back up in the top 5. And, you know, we talked about it at the beginning of the race because you had asked me after the first segment, is Harvick going to be fast in the second segment? I said he was one of the first guys to pit and got the new tires quicker. That really helped him. And it showed they did the exact same thing in the Xfinity race. Tyler Reddick pitted early. Cole Custer stayed out. Cole Custer got behind, and once the tires equalized out, he couldn't catch him. Yeah, you know. So Harvick learned from that.
Yeah, they all did. Yeah, they absolutely knew all that stuff going in there. I mean, Homestead wears on tires, and all these people that think that the championship race needs to move around, you're 100% completely wrong. There are so many great things about having that race at Homestead, and the surface is a big one. It's a giant wide surface that wears on tires, and that is the kind of race drivers love and fans love to watch because these cars get so loose so quick. The fall off, we were talking about it. I was
2.5 seconds over 25 laps.
That's insane. I mean, there's some tracks that you don't fall off a half a second in a full run because it's a fresh, clean surface that doesn't wear on tires. Homestead is a perfect track for the championship race.
Well, that and the weather.
Yeah. The weather's a big one.
You know, you're not worried about, even if you're in Texas this time of year, you could get snow or ice or something. Atlanta's been snowed out before. You know, you got to pretty much go to your southernmost place. That's why you have the Phoenix race right towards the end, you know, because of the weather again. I would like to see races moved around. I mean, that's just a personal preference for me. I just don't like a monopoly on one thing.
Races, I'm fine with, but I'm completely sold that this race needs to stay at Homestead.
Well, I think they could move it in Phoenix. I think they could run a championship weekend at Phoenix.
Yeah,
they could run a championship race at Fontana.
Hey, quick side note. I know we're supposed to be covering Homestead here, but the interesting news that NASCAR put in a proposal to purchase ISC, the International Speedway Corporation, which I know what you're going to say. It's basically NASCAR, but it's obviously not. It's owned by 2 different branches of the France family, but it's interesting that now NASCAR has offered to purchase them. And that kind of makes me hopeful for when these contracts end that we may see some significant changes if this deal goes through.
What I find interesting is NASCAR's for sale, NASCAR's for sale, NASCAR's for sale. Nope, we're going to buy ARCA and we're going to buy ISC. Huh?
Well, they're adding assets to their portfolio, though.
Well, they just think they can buy them for a dime on the dollar, which they can.
And if they've got these assets and they say, hey, you're not just buying this, but you're also buying tracks, you're also buying sponsors, you're buying other businesses, Racing Electronics is one of them that NASCAR acquired in the last couple of weeks. Anyway, so we got a little bit sidetracked there. We'll get back to Homestead and we'll talk more about this coming up in turn number 4. But Logano, man, what a great car. I mean, he definitely had it. He went for it and made the move on the outside of Martin Truex Jr., and everyone had a collective, held their breath to see what Martin Truex Jr. would do. Truex talked the talk, but he didn't walk the walk.
Not at our party. Everybody was going, get him, hit him, spin him, punt him, whatever it was, but everybody in the room. I don't think, outside of me wanting that $100, there was anybody else in the room that wanted, well, no, there was three of us that wanted Logano to win.
Yeah.
There was three of us.
Yeah. Yep. And what you're talking about is the Quaker Steak and Lube $100 cash prize. Pick the driver you think is going to win. Number of cars left on the lead lap is your tiebreaker. You and two other people picked Logano to win the race. You had the close. I think you'd pick 22 cars on lead lap. There ended up being 21. You were right there.
Well, and the weird part about the other two is they were both 9 apart.
Yeah.
30 and 12.
Yeah.
So you would have had to split it if I wouldn't have been there.
Yeah. Logano did a fantastic job. And I do give Martin Truex Jr. credit because on one hand, he criticized Joey Logano for moving him and winning that race. I think it'd have been a little hypocritical if he'd have moved him to win this race.
Well, I just thought, like as we talked when he passed him, I just thought it's way too early to hit him now.
Yeah.
And by the time it got down to 2 or 3 laps where you'd want to move somebody, he was 5 seconds behind or whatever it was.
And despite how good these guys are at controlling their cars, how many times in the history of NASCAR have we seen, I'm just going to move him, and then the guy you moved ends up in the wall, ricocheting back into you, and now you took both of us out.
Right.
And so it's a lot of drivers understand it's smarter, to wait till the final corner because like Joey Logano, Martin Truex Jr. bounced off the wall, came back and hit him, but Logano was able to keep going and win that race at Bristol. At Martinsville.
Yep.
And so it's too early on, you never know what could happen. And so I applaud Martin Truex Jr. for doing what he did. I think he did the honorable thing. I think he stuck to his guns. But as a commentator of the sport, damn it, I wish he would have moved him.
Yeah, a little drama always gives us something to talk about. Not that we're ever lacking.
Yeah.
But.
Joey Logano gets the win, followed by Martin Truex Jr. Kevin Harvick comes home third. Kyle Busch fourth in the championship 4. This is the first time all 4 have finished in the top 4. Brad Keselowski ends up finishing top 5. Matt Kenseth with a 6th place finish. Chase Elliott 7th. Clint Bowyer 8th. Eric Almirola 9th. And Kurt Busch with a top 10 finish. Looking at the points, I just talked about it. Joey Logano won the race, so obviously he is your points champion, wins his first championship in the Cup Series, and wins Roger Penske and Penske Racing's 2nd title in their Cup Series career. They have 4 in the Xfinity Series, so it puts them at 6 NASCAR championships overall. Martin Truex Jr. in the 78 car finishes 2nd in the points, and that car is now done. They're shipping it back to it's probably going to be in the Homestead or maybe the NASCAR museum or something, but that whole entire race shop has been torn down or is in the process of being torn down. Martin Truex Jr., Cole Pearn, and probably several of those guys are headed over to Joe Gibbs Racing in the 19 car.
Cinderella has left the ball.
Kevin Harvick rounds out or finishes 3rd, and Kyle Busch is your 4th place finisher. Eric Almirola, the best of the rest, in 5th. Chase Elliott 6th. Kurt Busch 7th. Brad Keselowski 8th. Kyle Larson 9th. And Ryan Blaney rounds out your top 10. Hamlin Bowyer, Austin Dillon, Jimmy Johnson, Eric Jones, and Alex Bowman round out your top 16 playoff contenders and how they finished for the 2018 point standings. A lot of the conversation going into the race was the 2 long season-winning streaks. Could one of them was definitely going to end. Could they both end? Neither Hamlin or Johnson were able to get the win, although they were strong. I think that's promising for both of them that they were strong at that race to end out the 2018 season. But do you think it matters going into 2019 if they were strong at the end of 18?
No, it really doesn't.
And the reason why we say that is because there's so many changes coming to NASCAR for 2019.
Well, there's so many aero changes coming. I think the team that's going to take the big step backward, as we talked before, coming into 2019 with the new car is going to be Ford. Mm-hmm. They're going to have the new nose and everything. It's going to be a whole new ball game. Well, but everybody's done it the last couple of years, and I mean, Toyota recovered very quickly when they did it. They took basically about a half a year to figure it out. Chevy, wins the first race out. So you go, they got it figured out. Well, then it was a long time before a Chevy showed up again.
And really, we're not just talking about showing up on the finishing results. We're talking about a contender for anything. Really, when you talk about a strong Chevy, the strongest Chevy all year was probably Kyle Larson. And he was pretty inconsistent as it was.
Well, he didn't win a race.
But I think he was the strongest Chevy. I think he was the one that we were talking about the most. Well, I guess then again you got Chase Elliott.
I was going to say Elliott was there. Elliott was the hammer for for the Hendrick Motorsports team this year, and not only got his first win, but ended up with 3 wins.
Yep.
So, definitely a season for him to remember. Got a road course, got a mile and a half, and then got Dover. So, very impressive season for him. Nothing. He's going nowhere but up. He's going to get nothing but better. Him and Ryan Blaney both.
The last thing I want to talk to you about: how much do you think the suspension of Rodney Childers and that car chief for the Ford team contributed to them not being champions?
I really don't think it did, because I think their pit strategy was very good through the first 2 segments. Like I said, they pitted early. They saw that from from Saturday's race. We pit early, we get the new tires, and then they went out and dominated the second half of those stages. I just think kind of basically when the sun went down and the track cooled off, they just didn't make the right adaptation.
And it's easy for it to it's so hard for us to be able to pinpoint what that was, but to me, I think that was the deciding factor. If Rodney Childers is up on that box, I think they make better changes. And you could always make the argument of, well, he made the changes anyways from a text message or a group conversation or whatever. But it's in the world of the critical decision being made at the exact time. You can't make it from a hotel room or a suite or another area through a group chat. You're on that pit box, you feel things, you hear things, your gut is much more in tune. I do think that the suspension of those 2 guys contributed to the guy who had tied for the most wins, the most stage wins, and the most playoff points. I think that contributed to the reason why he didn't win the championship.
Well, and see, I don't think it was that big a deal, because like I said, for half the race, they were pretty dominant. They really were. Didn't they win both stages?
They won stage 1 and 2, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they won both
again,
stages.
I mean, that's what a good crew chief does. He's got to stay up on the changes.
They were second in stage 2.
Were they really?
Yeah, Kyle Larson got him by half a car on that last lap.
That last lap, that's right. But what a great year. Hey, we're going to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 2. We're going to sit down with Nick Dice of Tuxedo Raceway Park in Crete, Nebraska. And coming up in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a full sit-down. I want to get Chad. Chad, by the way, lucky SOB that he is headed to Las Vegas for the awards ceremony. So I wanted to get him back, kind of talk a little bit about what he saw and some of the experiences. But I want to kind of talk about some of the stats in the year overall.
Why does he want to go to that?
I think because he's getting to go for free.
Oh, well, that definitely changes things.
Helps out a lot, doesn't it?
I've been to NASCAR banquets. They're all right.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back in turn number 2.
Finding a home can be the most important decision in your life. It's the simple factors of neighborhood, garage size, the school district, and commute that get overlooked by most realtors. Those are the aspects that Jim Blazina has been focusing on since 1988. From rental properties to your forever home, the Racing Realtor will work hard to get you exactly what you're looking for, and he can help list your home for a speedy sale. Contact Jim Blazina today, 402-980-8400, or jblazina at npdodge.com.
Every race car driver has run into the same problem. It's well past normal parts store closing hours, but you need that one to finish your car. The guys who brought you White Knuckle Racing by the River bring you Joe's Karting Racing Parts and Tire Store. Open until 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday and open until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. A parts store that fits your after-hours schedule, and you can turn a few laps at Joe's Karting while you're waiting for your part to get pulled from their warehouse. joeskarting.com for more information.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch, rolling into turn number 2, and it's time to sit down with the local Speedway that just came online earlier this year. We're talking with Nick Dice of Tuxedo Speedway. Nick, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing very good, thank you. How are you guys?
Great, man. I really appreciate you coming on. And first off, you've got a bad last name. I mean, how many nicknames do you roll around with?
There's some that are appropriate and there's some that are a little inappropriate, but for the most part, it's just always kind of been Dice. You know, that's the kind of thing that sticks.
Ever done like a Dice Man, like Andrew Dice Clay?
No, I had on my first helmet when I started in karting, my mom for Christmas put Dice Man on the back of it, and it was okay, but it just wasn't something that I stuck with.
Maybe not a persona you wanted to be known as.
No, I mean, it was okay. It just wasn't. I don't know. I didn't really want an alter ego or any of that. I wasn't looking for a nickname at the time.
It's hard enough with one ego. Better yet, an alter ego.
That's right. That's right.
How many pair of big fuzzy dice have you got for presents over the years?
No, there's been plenty. That's for my kids now.
We'll talk a little bit about how you got involved in dirt racing.
Yeah, so, I've been around racing my entire life. So my grandfather started building micro sprints in the late 40s, early 50s, and He raced a little bit, but he always had guys racing for him. So he built several cars. And my dad actually still has the second car that he ever built. And my dad ran stock cars at Sunset for a little bit, but really spent most of his time running micro sprints in the Fort Calhoun Twin Arrows over there, and a little bit more around the Omaha area. But I don't know, budget stuff was always a difficulty for my dad's racing, so he actually didn't race for very long. I grew up going to Sunset every Sunday, Kaziskis and Dave Chase, during all that time and all those guys. And we'd go to Eagle on Friday night, back when they used to have the Friday program. Then we'd go to Corning on Saturday, and then we'd go Sundays to Sunset. And I didn't start. I always wanted to go racing. It was just never really in the cards. And then I want to say I was about 12 or 13 when my dad finally decided that we could go give it a try. And I've been in and out of karting several times since I want to say it was about 1993. I think was our first year doing that. So, I've raced against a lot of people that have gone on and done other things. I kind of get a kick out of seeing the results at I-80, for example, because a lot of those guys I used to race against when I was a kid and whatnot. But I like the karting stuff, and I've always liked the karting stuff. I like how difficult it is to go fast, but I also like how easy it is to work on. Mm-hmm. So it's just something that we've always stuck with. And karting, that's where I met my wife at the racetrack. I got my first job out of college just based upon somebody that I knew at the racetrack, and it's just kind of always been my network.
So the karting racing's kind of come natural to you. You say that you've always wanted to race something else. I don't know if I caught that you ever got an opportunity to race like a hobby stock or a sport compact.
My cousin Joel Fritz runs he still runs micro sprints, and I got to race his micro sprint once out at the Greenwood. They had a track outside of I would say it's off to the west. It was off to the west of the big track there. I think the Silmans ran that for a little while, and I got to race on that once. But that's the only thing I've ever been in besides the kart. And I've driven. I've done the the NASCAR rides at Charlotte and whatnot, but I've never been in a big car.
What point did you transition from the driver to actually running a track?
Well, I guess I don't want to say that transition's over because eventually I'll start driving again. It's just something that I always want to do. But yeah, in all honesty, the difficult thing has been transitioning from the track and having two kids that are out there racing. I think has been the big thing. I don't know. I raced the turkey trade. The last time I raced, I want to say really, I guess where we were really all in was the turkey chase, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago. Ever since then, it's either been focusing on my kids' stuff or, just out there watching and whatnot. Like I was just saying, I think my desire is actually out there to be racing, but I enjoy the other aspects of it. A couple years ago, Ralph Woodard and Jody Krug and Butch Bade, who run the January race, asked me to help out, and it was almost kind of coincidental, and I really enjoyed it. And I think that was kind of the spark to say, hey, look, I might want to look at something, because in our area there's just been a huge gap for quite some time on Saturday. Mm-hmm. We need to have Saturday night racing, and we don't. We do now, obviously, but it's been a huge gap since Waverly closed, and I think we're going on 10 years now since Waverly's been closed. And the interesting thing about that, in my opinion, is that a lot of people have just forgotten that we could race on Saturday nights, and just getting back to that, and that kind of used to be the roots, and that's where everybody wanted to go to Waverly, and karting was huge then, and I'm hoping that we can potentially bring it back.
For those of you who aren't following along, racetuxedo.com is the website located over in Crete, Nebraska. 2018 was the kickoff to you guys getting the track back online, correct?
Yeah, yep. We just started. I think our first race was at the end of May, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And talk a little bit about how that came about?
Oh, it was brutal.
Didn't you get a hold of me in like 2017? You're like, hey, we got a track coming online.
Yeah,
I want to talk to you soon.
Actually, I think you contacted me first. I was but yeah, we were going to start something in Lincoln, and that actually came out of the Lancaster Event Center. They were interested in doing something in their area that they have over there. But the issue and those people they're fantastic. That whole staff and crew there was great. But the problem that we were having is that they wanted to be able to tear the track out so that they could do their regular events that they had and whatnot, and it's just not feasible. Yeah. So once once we finally figured out that we weren't going to be able to do that, we just decided that we had to move on. And I had moved on too. I was actually done with the entire idea. And then a group of racers, parents, actually approached me in August. I'm going to get my years mixed up. It was August of 2017, and asked me if I was still interested in doing anything. And I had told them no, that I wasn't. And they actually kind of pushed me and said, hey, we'd really like this and we'd like to support this if you do. So then I just started looking around, and it doesn't get any more simple than I was on Google Maps looking for open holes in towns around the area, to be honest with you. And
did you kind of draw like a map between other kart racing tracks so you don't kind of impede on them too much?
No, I really don't think I have that issue because we're on Saturday and no one else is. So the closest thing that we have going on Saturdays is Newton and Kansas City, and that's just too far for anybody that races locally. So I wasn't really concerned from that standpoint. But I wanted to be close enough to Omaha that it was reasonable, and then obviously Lincoln's home base for me. I'm from Omaha, but Lincoln's home base, and just wanted to be close to that. And we're pulling people from Central Nebraska as well, which has been awesome. It wasn't something that I expected. But yeah, so what happened was I never even spent. I think maybe I went to Doane one time when I was in college, and that was the only time I'd ever been to Crete. And I drove out to the fairgrounds that they had out there, and there was just this open space that they used once a year for demo derbies. And it's one of those things where you drive over the hill and you kind of look and right, it's the light, like it was a perfect layout.
Build it and they will come.
Yeah, it's very similar to that.
Were there voices? Was James Earl Jones in your head?
Well, in all honesty, the first thing that went to my head is, why hasn't anybody done this? I mean, there were already lights there. It was just an open field. And, the funny thing about that is that Tommy Bender, who I've never met, but I remember watching him race when I was a kid. He used to run micro sprints out at Waverly. He sent me a message. This was less than a month ago, that he grew up in Crete, and his dad had always told him that was where someone should put a racetrack, and his dad wanted to put a racetrack there. And I thought that was a cool story because the area is just about perfect to have a racetrack. I mean, obviously, so it's worked out pretty good. And then also one other thing that I just don't want to leave out is that we've just had a ton of support from the leadership of Crete, the city of Crete, the city council, the people that are involved with the parks, because it is a city park for Crete, and they've been fantastic.
Talk about your 2018 season. How to kick off the summer months, and your champions have been crowned, correct?
Yeah, so the season was interesting. I'll be honest with anybody that asks me. Every aspect of this was more difficult than I expected it to be. That's been from the keeping of points to the directing of the race to the scorekeeping. But in all honesty, and I think everybody knows that our biggest obstacle so far this year was just really maintaining a smooth racing surface, and it was really difficult. And our numbers were extremely low, and it was tough because as one of our racers was saying, giving me a hard time, we had the Baja Buggy course out there, and really I would say those first few races of the year we were having. I bet we were getting 10 to 20 carts, and that's very low. And it sounds low, and it is low. And by the end of the year, we had a very smooth racing surface, and we were getting. I think our last two races we were in the mid 50s. Wow. And actually, the race that we had to call because of rain, we were expecting to have over 60 for that race. We were going to get a lot of people from Central Nebraska, so we're heading in the right direction. We're starting to get some stuff figured out. We did a little bit thing. We set our races up in segments this year, so we had a little fall series at the end. So we kind of have points champions for two different groups and whatnot. But we haven't had our banquet yet. Just trying to figure out how we're going to get that done. We've crowned the champions and finished up the year, and really, in all honesty, feeling really good about where we are going into next year.
Well, I could see where the town would get behind something like this because, like you said, you got 50, 60 carts coming in. If you get up to that on a weekly basis, that's a lot of revenue coming into town for them.
Yeah, and what's been kind of interesting, too, is really a lot of we're basically right next to a softball field. And then there's a baseball field across the way. And what we've been seeing is a lot of people just kind of walking over and what is this all about? The crowds have been hit or miss, but there on some of our bigger nights, we were close to a couple hundred people out there, which for a kart race, I've been around this a long time, that's quite a few. And there's just a lot of interest in general. I think, like I said, I think we're in really good shape going into next year as far as the interest level and the support and whatnot.
Well, that's good.
Talk to us a little bit about the plans for 2019.
Yeah, so we're kind of, I feel like I'm still finishing up 2018, but we've also, obviously, March will be here before you know it. And we're just, the big thing that we've got going on is we've got karting in the Cornhusker State Games next year, which we're really excited about. I've participated, officiated, volunteered, and then I have kids in the Cornhusker State Games. So I think it's something that they're very excited about, and I think people in the area are excited about. The one thing is I don't really know what people think comes along with the Cornhusker State Games, but my excitement about it is that I think it starts to bring a motorsport a little bit more mainstream. Anything
else you want to talk about you got coming up for 2019 you can let us know about, or are we going to have to like the Facebook page and wait for official announcements?
No, so we're putting the schedule together. What I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to figure out how to balance some of the touring karting races and some of the other local stuff. And there's other races that I don't want to step on. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to figure that out. But one thing I am going to do is we're going to break out our season into segments next year. Kind of NASCAR-ish, I guess, but not exactly. What we're going to do is we're going to have a 3-session season, so it'll be spring, summer, and fall.
Okay.
And racers will earn points based upon how they finish in each one of those particular segments, and they'll get bonus points for how they finish in a segment, and then how they actually, perfect attendance and things like that. So yeah. I haven't quite ironed that all out yet. And then one thing that I'm looking into too that I'm still not certain on is one of our touring series in the area has chosen to leave some of the bigger weekends open, like for example Memorial Day. Mm-hmm. And I know I've already been asked by a few people about could we potentially do some bigger money type prize races on some of those open weekends, so if your weekly racer maybe doesn't necessarily want to do that, but maybe somebody outside the area might want to on some of those weekends. So looking at potentially doing some of that stuff as well. So a lot to do and iron out from a schedule standpoint, but we're definitely looking at that. And then we're also trying to upgrade some of the things that we like scoring, for example. We're actively trying to figure out how to go to electronic timing and scoring and those type of things. So we're just trying to get better. We feel like we finished the year strong, but it's never ending. So we just got to keep pushing.
Yeah, just when you think the off season's here, it's back to work again.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice to have a break. Now get back to work.
Off season?
Yeah, exactly.
Nick Dice of Tuxedo Raceway Park in Crete, Nebraska. RaceTuxedo.com for more information. Find him on Facebook. Nick, have a great off season. I know we just joked about as little as it is. Try to enjoy it. Have a great holiday season, and let us know when that schedule's ready to go. We'll get you back on the show.
Yeah, and is there any way I can just thank a few people real quick?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess one thing that this season that I can't express enough is how overwhelmed with how many people we had help us, and there were people that I didn't ask for help, and they just continued to step up and help us, and I'm going to leave people out, which is always the risk of when you do this, but Ben Hur at CNL Automotive in Lincoln has just been a huge supporter of us from the time that we actually built the track to seeing us through. He's a class sponsor, he's a track sponsor, and he helped us out big time.
Hold on. I don't mean to make fun of the guy.
I know what you're going to ask me.
It's really Ben Hur?
It's Herr, yeah.
Okay.
And Ben's been around in a long time. He sponsored sprint cars. He's got a grandson right now. He's drag race, so he's just been a huge supporter of ours.
Well, Dan makes fun of me. He said I got interesting in racing watching Ben Hur race a chariot. So
he was right there at the driver introductions, getting his autograph and everything.
Of course.
Anyways, go on.
One of the people that's helped us out, Allie Wood, has been our scorer this year, and she's actually a micro sprint racer that has taken a lot of time away from the micros to help us out. And I used to work with Allie. I don't anymore, but she's just been huge. But just my dad owns Midwest Metal Works in Omaha, and I'll tell you one thing: like if I wasn't able to tell my dad, hey, I need to build this thing to hook to the tractor, or the water truck doesn't work this way, it would be impossible. Along with him and Tim Gorham, who's also helps with a lot of stuff. And the one thing about my dad that I want to bring up is that I've had to pretty much take a step away from working on my kids' carts. So my dad's my fix-it guy, and he's taken over the role of parent to my kids at the racetrack. So it's just been fantastic. And my mom and my father-in-law, Brad Swigert, have been extremely helpful. And then the last thing is my wife. I mean, my wife allowing me to do this. It takes so much time. And it's just a drain. So there's just so many people that that make this whole thing go around, but I enjoy doing it, and it's fun, and I enjoy the satisfaction that people seem to be getting out of it.
Yeah. Thank you for what you're doing. You got to be moving the needle if you're getting cars starting off at 20 a week and then you're up to 60 a week. So good job. Like I said before, enjoy the off season while it lasts, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. I appreciate you giving me the time to talk about it.
Have a good one. See you, bud.
Take care.
Thanks, Nick.
Bye. Once again, that's Nick Dice of Tuxedo Park Raceway in Crete, Nebraska. RaceTuxedo.com is the web address to get more information on that, or just search Tuxedo Park Raceway on Facebook. It'll pop right up, and you get more information on there, everything they've got going on.
And I need to drive out there and get Ben Hur's autograph because I missed that. I was never able to get that way back when.
He didn't stop for you? All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in turn number 3. Josh Most of Edge Chassis will join us to talk about they had a dominant season at ACS, at Adams County Speedway. We'll talk more about that coming up in turn number 3.
We all have that coworker that runs their mouth off at how great they are. They shot a 5 under par, 95-mile-an-hour fastball, bench press 375, brah. Wouldn't you love to shut them up by schooling them at Joe's Karting? Council Bluffs' premier indoor karting track, professionally designed so each corner is your opportunity to embarrass your coworker. Call Buddy for your next company outing at 712-256-5278. Joe's Karting, white knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue next to AMC 17.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Welcome back to it, rolling into turn number 3, and it's time to sit down with a local driver and chassis builder. Owner of Edge Chassis, drives the number 92 modified, whether it be a sport mod, a mod, or even a late model from time to time. It's Josh Most, like I said, owner of Edge Chassis. How you doing, bud?
Pretty good, how are you?
Doing well. Good season for you. We were just talking about it during the last turn on the show. Edge Chassis absolutely whooped the field at Adams County Speedway this year.
Yeah, those guys all kind of got together and came off strong and still finished well. Lost a couple races anyway, but it was a pretty good deal they had going on down there.
Yeah, in a field or in a season of 10, 12, 15 races, that you literally lost a couple.
Yeah. About partway through the year, Adams County kind of stepped up, asked me what we could do to try to put a bounty out on my guys, and I said, well, that don't really sound all that great. So I kind of put up a proposal to them to try to give a car away for a free trade-in if they could keep continuing out the year without losing very many races, and put up a proposal for other guys if they'd win a couple races to give them some free stuff, body work and such.
That's got to be good advertising for drivers that are maybe thinking about switching chassis when there is not just a driver but a chassis that is so dominant at a track.
Yeah, we're just working on actually a few more guys. We've got a lot of phone calls. Jake Sacco went out to Vegas and won, getting a lot of calls out that way. Got a couple sold out there. We've got a couple local guys up by Des Moines, just in eastern Iowa, that are kind of switching brands. Some of it's just the cost of the way the racing industry is. It's getting more expensive, and they're wanting a little bit more hands-on. I spend a lot of time with each individual person, which which everybody at Adams County Speedway kind of spoke for themselves, and they all got the same race car, but all of them might be just a little bit different. I got a pretty good base setup we start at, and just work with each individual person and get it perfected for them.
So then, what you're saying is Adams County is eventually here in the next year or two, they're going to have 2 sport mod divisions, sport mods, and then the edge division. So it'll be like 14, 15, 20 guys out there with edge sport mods. They'll have their show, and then they'll have the other 3 guys.
Well, that'd be all great. I mean, I actually do have a few down there, but it makes it hard. I've been in their shoes back when I raced in go-karts, and you get to a point where I got a pretty good field of cars that guys are comfortable, they're winning races, so they don't want to go anywhere. But outside of that, the other racers, they want something different, and you can't blame them for that. I've had a lot of people kind of call me and ask for help and try to shoot in the right direction, but every car is a little bit different. We all have different ways of doing things, so you can't blame a guy for wanting to be a little different. So I guess it'd be nice to have them all out there, but that's never going to happen for
you got a lot of welding to do before that happens.
Yeah, that's no kidding. I mean, usually it's really slow in the racing right now. Just a lot of people get tired of spending money all summer long. It's an expensive sport. Sponsors, kind of want to wait until the first part of the year just to kind of get all their books in a row to try to see how much they can help racers out. And so it's usually kind of slow right now between Thanksgiving and Christmas, just with families and everything, and then it really takes off. But we've been extremely busy for this time of year compared to the past, so I guess we're fortunate and happy about that.
Well, you talk about having to work with all the racers. We had Ron Hornaday on a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about the chassis he's doing, and he said what really gets bad is when you've got one driver that's 5'4" and weighs 110 pounds, and you got a driver that's 6'2" and weighs 240. And the big guy hears that you gave the little guy a certain spring package, and you gave him different springs, and he's out there kicking his butt every week. And Ron says, and I'm trying to explain to him, well, cut yourself in half so you're as little as he is, and you can run his spring package. It's just not going to work for you.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to try to explain that to people, sit down, and just try to get them better for what they need to get better, because everybody's a little different. Everybody drives a little bit different. Like I've told people, most people that watch me race, I about guarantee I'm the last guy to let off the gas when we get to the corner, which is a good thing to happen sometimes, but maybe not. There's a lot of guys that, lift at the flag stand, and they'll still outrun guys that are on the gas. So it just depends on the, how everything is and the night of racing and everything. You can win races by being wild, and you can win races by being calm and slow.
A lot of people, when they set out, maybe they start a chassis company and they think, boy, it'd be so nice to be busy. But I do kind of think with how busy you are, it's not like you're a 10-man operation or a 20-man operation and you got jigs and CNC machines and automatic welders. I mean, it's kind of a back shop thing that, you're running this the best you can, but there's not a lot of help for you.
No, my dad steps in and my uncle steps in. They help me out when I'm by myself, giving an extra hand. But I actually have 2 guys that used to build the K-mods back in the day for Kaziski's. They work for me full time. We keep them going so I can go out and race and spend a lot of time with customers. So it's kind of a little bit of a team effort. We got a couple of shops we work out of. So it's a little different than what some people want to do, but it works best for us, and we've proved that that's what it takes, and it's still go out and win races.
Yeah, I got a little bone to pick with you. I saw a recent post of yours on Facebook where you were talking about the 2 biggest things on IMCA cars that were out of whack was the, I think it was the front bumper and the roof height. Was that correct?
Yeah, like front bumper, rear bumper. Some of the front bumper stuff, everybody kind of dropped the lower the cars to try to make them work better and be faster. The rear bumper is a big problem. Everybody keeps trying to raise the rear of the car, and some companies out there, I've kind of picked the bone with Brett Rood a little bit and brought it up with IMCA, but if you look at some of these cars, the back bumpers aren't really even close to the height that they're supposed to be, and they're too far in the air. Well, it's just a matter of time before something happens and somebody drives underneath the back of somebody and hits a fuel cell. Now, nobody wants to see that happen. And then the roof thing, IMCA is kind of stepping in, and they're restricting that a little bit, but it's been in the rule for years, and they need to get some of the safety stuff kind of straightened out to where before we have a problem, I guess we should say. I mean, hopefully it never happens, but I like to kind of be on the safer side of everything. I mean, if there's anything that IMCA likes to see me have done different, I prefer them to bring it up and we resolve the problem as quick as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I did IMCA Tech just 1 year, one summer, after doing NASCAR side for 17 years. So, you know, I had the pretty good gist of what was going on. And my biggest concern with mods was just the deck height. I mean, at 38 inches, I very seldom saw one under 40, and you'd start writing these guys up, and they just go ballistic. I race 6 tracks a week, and nobody ever says anything. And, well, I don't know why they're not doing their job. You know, it's right in the rule book. But
it is, and the biggest problem is I mean, some of it can go into the safety factor, but they're trying to do it for a performance advantage. And
Correct.
The way IMCA has it wrote up in the rule book, it's a body infraction. So unless you catch it before we go out or the next time we go out, so if you catch it in the feature, they can actually dispute it if you didn't tell them about it after the heat race. IMCA will go back and they'll stand behind the racer on that because it should have been caught before we even went out. But if you catch a guy after the heat race, they say that better be fixed before the feature. It better be fixed if you catch it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, when I caught him, there was a lot of guys I rode up, and it was up at Park Jefferson when their last full year. It was back in 2011, and there was a lot of guys that I rode up, and they just never came back. You know, because I called Tom, and I've known Tom Gutowski since the 70s, and I called him up, and I said, what am I going to do on this? And he goes, well, write them up, and then make sure you check it the next time they show up. So.
Yeah. I mean, the racers we have left, everybody's kind of bullheaded and hard-headed, and we want to do things our own way because everybody's spending a lot of money. It's an expensive sport, but we all need to kind of bunker down and get on the same playing field before it gets out of control, and then we don't have nothing left to race.
Well, it just gets harder and harder the longer you wait to crack down on it.
Exactly. That's what a lot of it is you know, and I've talked about, I think actually it was either Jordan Grabowski or Terry Phillips had a brake floater rod or a 4-link rod brake, and it went through the back of their seat. And GRT stepped in and they started replating their 4-bar brackets back in, which should have been done from day one. I mean, you never know. It was a fluke incident. I don't know if he got hit and that's what caused it to break, but you never want that to happen. And I kind of brought it up to some IMCA guys, and they said, well, some of you manufacturers need to be smart enough to just do it on your own. I go, yeah. That is probably going to happen across the board.
Yeah, we're gonna add 75 pounds to the car for nothing. Yeah. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, they want to they want to lighten the car up as much as can, and then put the lead where we want it. So I was like, you got to kind of set us straight sometimes. I mean, you just need to step your foot in before something bad happens to somebody, and then we all kind of get yelled and screamed at. I mean, you might as well just do it now and kind of get us all in a row and tell us all what we need to do. So
yeah, there was a lot of broken feet and ankles before that area ever got plated in.
Yeah. I mean, it just takes one bad one. I mean, we've had, you know, in the Midwest, there's been some bad wrecks and people get burned up, and we definitely don't need to see that with anybody in any brand of car or any kind of racing.
EdgeByMost.com, more information on the chassis manufacturing side. Also, Edge Chassis by Most on Facebook page. So we've talked about the chassis side of it. Now let's talk about the fun side of it, the side where you get to actually go out and play in the dirt with some of these other guys. I haven't seen you around the tracks much this year.
No, I got teamed up with Andy Gage with Gage Agronomy Services. Kind of spent a lot of time with him. We just built 2 new cars and went to Vegas. So spent a year and kind of just developed a program with him and kind of worked with more hands-on with my racers. And I didn't race very much, like you were saying, but next year we're planning on racing probably 2 to 3 times as much as we did. Even since Vegas, he actually bought a midget to go midget racing with me. We're getting ready to go do that here in second week of December, and then in January go to the Chili Bowl. So we're going to go plan on doing that, and he's even getting into a little bit of that just to kind of go racing with me more to get geared up to go race all next summer. We're going to start in February in Texas and try to hit it hard next year.
Where are you going to go the second week of December with the midget?
DeCoin, Illinois.
You're not going to race the Gateway Dirt Nationals?
That was
in St. Louis?
invitational only.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Invitational only. They're trying to build that up probably at least the first year. Keith Coons and Klaus and Marshall cars is what basically will probably all be there. Maybe a few other guys. I know Dave Darwin was looking for a ride. If we wouldn't have been trying to go do that DeCoin deal, I was maybe going to try to get a hold of him to see if he still needed a car. He's actually drove the car that we own now, that my dad owns. That was originally Justin Allgaier's. So we went and did a little racing with Dave Darlin and the Allgaier's, and back in the day when we all did that here a few years ago. So
all right, Edge Chassis by Moe's. Find him on Facebook, find him online. Josh, always do appreciate your time. We'll talk to you beginning of next year as you get ready for the 2019 season.
Maybe a little chili bowl preview or something.
Yeah. We'll see how the coin goes and make sure we got 4 tires and wheels still to go race.
All right, buddy. Have a great Thanksgiving.
All right, you too.
We'll see you. Have a good one.
All right, thanks.
We're going to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 4. We're going to wrap this baby up on the front stretch. This week's young gun on the front stretch is 24-year-old Jacob Homestead out of Overton, Nebraska. Jacob knew he wanted to be a dirt track driver since he was a little boy watching his uncle stand in victory lane. He started his racing career in 2013 behind the wheel of a sport compact, and he didn't wait long before moving into the hobby stock class where he won track championships at Dawson County Raceway, Oberlin Speedway, and Lincoln County Speedway. After 2 years in the hobby stocks, Jacob took his shot at an IMCA sport mod, and like a duck to water, Jacob picked up back-to-back track championships at Dawson County Raceway and won National Rookie of the Year honors through IMCA. With 2018 behind him, Jacob is already working on his schedule for next season. Right now, he plans to race as many touring races as possible while sticking to his weekly tracks when time allows. You better believe Jacob is already working on his number 88J BMS race car, B&B Manufacturing, Bruner Frank Attorneys at Law Sport Modified. Keep your eye out on Victory Lane next year for this week's young gun, Jacob Olmstead.
Hey, look at that. You're sitting on your couch playing Halo, Madden, or NASCAR while your friends are at Joe's Karting. Each lap is an adrenaline-filled, heart-pumping, white-knuckle experience that you can only get at the Metro's largest indoor karting track. Eco-friendly Honda engines rip you around the professionally designed road course at breakneck speeds. Can you reach the 14-second lap bracket? There's only one way to find out. Put the controller down and get to Joe's Karting, 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs next to Quaker Steak and Lube.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Just about ready to wrap this baby up. Headed into turn number 4, brought to you by Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch. Get over to Quaker Steak and Lube today for all the football action. No more NASCAR action to talk about. Quaker Steak and Lube, all the big screen action, all the football action on the big screens over at the Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch. And again, thanks to those guys for putting on the parties we do every year, the Daytona 500 party, the Dirt Derby, the NASCAR on at Eldora race, the Chili Bowl. We'll probably do a viewing party for that one, and then, of course, the Homestead party, which we just did last weekend.
So by gosh, by gum, by golly, if you want a little special event and your house ain't big enough, go talk to Chris and his people and have your party right over there. He'll hook you up. He'll take care of you. And, like I said, we had a blast. We had a great time.
Well, while the little time we have left in today's show, I kind of wanted to cover a couple of the topics. We don't have a lot of the silly season seats filled, but there is a chain of events that I think is going to start to fall into place over the next couple of weeks. A lot of statements have been made over the last 2 or 3 weeks about Kurt Busch in the 41 car, and it becomes more and more apparent that he's not returning to that car.
Yeah, from what we're hearing, it looks like they're going to take the 4 off of it.
Well, he's going to head over to Chip Ganassi Racing in the number 1 car, and Jamie McMurray is not returning to Chip Ganassi Racing, although he has been offered a ride at the Daytona 500 and then a leadership role within the organization. As of the time we recorded Monday afternoon, no word on if he was going to accept that offer, but the offer was still on the table last time the media got to talk to the NASCAR at Homestead. So Jamie McMurray out of the 1. Sounds like Kurt Busch is going to head over to that 1 at Chip Ganassi, at Chip Ganassi Racing. And Daniel Suarez seems to be the front runner heading to the 41 machine. And that news is now official as they have announced that Cole Pern and Martin Truex Jr. are going to take over the 19 ride. And I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but does this officially kill the rumors that Daniel Suarez forced Carl Edwards out of that 19 ride?
No. Because it's a couple years removed. But out of all this, what we've been talking about so far, the interesting part that I see in all this is the Kurt Busch move. And I can't help but think that Kurt Busch a few years ago ran an Indy 500. Mm-hmm. Well, Chip Ganassi just happens to have a whole bunch of those kind of cars.
Yeah.
So maybe Kurt's going to go do that again since he's going to be under the if he ends up with the Ganassi umbrella.
Right.
But to me, that's just a side note, on what might be going on over there.
Well, you got to take these pieces and put them together. The reason why we're so firm that Daniel Suarez is headed to the 41 of Stewart-Haas Racing is because Stewart-Haas Racing announced a business partnership with Eris about a month ago, and it was kind of an interesting timing for this announcement. It was almost like they were supposed to announce Daniel Suarez in the 41, but something happened and they had to hold off on that announcement, but the business partnership was announced anyways. And so it's when they start striking these deals, and it's a deal that makes sense. I mean, Eris produces industrial gas. They're an industrial gas supplier. And
I produce industrial gas.
Oh, you guys listening, you have no idea. Hotel rooms, morning shows with him, you have no idea. Anyways, and with Haas Automation, a CNC machine company, it's a perfect partnership.
Absolutely.
And I think Daniel is a good driver. He just needs the right tutelage. And it's interesting that Joe Gibbs Racing hasn't really produced a quality young driver in quite some time. And I want to go back to probably Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin were the last two. Because you look at Joey Logano, who went over and filled in that 20 ride for Tony Stewart, and frankly, he struggled. I think he was there for 5 or 6 years and only picked up a couple of races. Soon as he switched over to Penske, it was like a light switch was turned on.
Well, the only driver they've really produced, because Kyle Busch came from Hendrick.
True.
Is Hamlin. Hamlin spent his whole career with Joe Gibbs, and now Eric Jones ran his Xfinity career there and is now, up in the Cup and has got a win already.
Yeah.
I mean, the future's bright for that young man. But, Daniel Suarez just hasn't developed in the couple years that he's been up in Cup like they thought he would.
And I guess the reason why I say that is history has shown us with Joe Gibbs Racing and young drivers, and they switch organizations, just give it a year or two and let's see what he's able to do, because Daniel Suarez may be that talented of a driver. He just didn't have the right crew chief and the right mixture at Joe Gibbs Racing. And him going to Stewart-Haas Racing isn't final by any means, but that's just our suspicion is that that's where he's going to be headed.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, all the ducks are lined up and they're all pointing that way. So let's see if they all walk over into the Stewart-Haas camp or not. But I'm saying that's probably where he's going to end up. Like I said, there's also, I was reading where Jimmy Johnson, and I can't remember who he's going to switch cars with and do a test. I want to say it was a Formula One test with somebody.
Yeah, and I don't remember who it was either. That was a story that came out quite a few weeks ago, but I can't remember who that was either.
But it seemed kind of interesting because, I mean, there's been several of these Cup drivers that have talked about wanting to go over and try and run the double, run the Indy 500 and then the 600 after that.
Yep.
Tony Stewart had done it. Kurt Busch did it a few years back. And it seems kind of silly when you sit and you talk to some of these other NASCAR drivers that have come from the other side, like A.J. Allmendinger, had a chat with his girlfriend in Kansas City and said he wants nothing to do with going back over there.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
That's going to do it for us for today's show. We appreciate everybody tuning in and listening. Again, thank you to everybody that came out during the Homestead viewing party. We'll get the Daytona viewing party up and running, but before that, we've got the Chili Bowl viewing party we'll be doing in January, and that's more of a low-key, just come out and hang out and watch the race because it takes a subscription to watch it. So just come out to Quaker Steak and Lube, grab a beer, grab some wings, and watch the race. It's a lot of fun.
And plan on being there for at least till the bar closes because that race takes a long time some
I think
days.
It wrapped up at like 11:30 or midnight, or right before midnight, and the bar closed. The place was supposed to close at 11. They were nice enough to stay open for us, so I'm going to have to talk to my friends. Oh, wait, I don't have any friends. The Chili Bowl, never mind. Coming up next weekend, we will get you a recap on the silly season news, anything that breaks in the time that we are gone. Tom Gutowski, the former competition director for IMCA, will join us to talk about his time as said competition director. We'll talk about the official Pick'ems contest results, and we'll get you more information on the shows to come in the off season. For Dirk Houston, I'm Dan Dan Taylor. That's going to do it for us today. We'll do it again next weekend for the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590.
Every race car driver has run into the same problem. It's well past normal parts store closing hours, but you need that one to finish your car. The guys who brought you white knuckle racing by the river bring you Joe's Karting Racing Parts and Tire Store. Open until 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday and open until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. A parts store that fits your after-hours schedule, and you can turn a few laps at Joe's Karting while you're waiting for your part to get pulled from their warehouse. joeskarting.com for more information.
The official watering hole of the Front Stretch has you covered any day of the week with the best wings, great burgers, and amazing steaks. Each weekday from 4 to 6 is happy hour, featuring $1 off draft and well drinks plus $4 Luberitas. Mondays are kids' night. Tuesdays are all-you-can-eat wings for $12.95, and the lube even delivers to the Council Bluffs area. Like Quaker Steak and Lube Council Bluffs on Facebook for a full list of weekly events.
Get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Mid-America Drive, Council Bluffs.
This has been the Front Stretch Radio Show, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page, where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.